Okay, so I'm gonna go through the Putt Putt videos here. We're going to kind of plow through them relatively quickly because there's so many. You already have some video feedback there, so let's open this up and look at them. And I'm gonna be talking somewhat quick on these just because there's so many. Let me get a marker up here so we can talk. Okay, so this is Aaron, I think. Yep, Aaron. Okay, so let's go ahead and watch here. So overall, this one looks really good. It feels to me like maybe it is a little bit slower in the distance that it travels here, and then it speeds up again after it hits this wall. I'm not 100% sure on that, and it's very slight if it is. And then the only other little thing I'd say is it kind of feels like it's going pretty fast, and then it starts slowing down a little more drastically right here. Um, I feel like it kind of, maybe it's closer to here. It just kind of like slams on the brakes a little bit before it gets to the. So I think ease into that just a little bit. And then the final thing I'd say is like when it falls in the hole, it kind of gets to here and then it just drops suddenly. And I think it would have just a little bit of arcing, like right in through here. Like it'll start to dip a little bit into it. So right now it's kind of hovering just a little bit, but just that little bit of an arc will would be nice. Like you'll see it. It'll be very, or you won't maybe consciously notice it, but it will subtly like give you that hint of the curve or the arcing of the motion there. Um, but overall, this one's really good. So those are just some minor tweaks that you could work on. Let's move on from there. We're going to go to the next one. I got BJ. Open it up. Let's make this one bigger. Okay, I'm actually going to open this up in QuickTime, if it will, just so we can scrub. Maybe. There we go. So it's going to be a little bit blurry, but you get the idea of it. So to me, you get a little bit of a hitch in the arc right there. Okay, it's not traveling; it's traveling in a straight line, and then it kind of curves a little bit right there and goes back in. And then it feels like it feels like it slows down a little bit before it gets to the wall there. See how that gap is small? Is there another viewer I can play this in that won't pixelate it, but would still let me scrub? I think Windows Media Player Classic will. Yeah. Okay, so we'll use that one instead. So you'll see here, like it kind of curves a little bit right there. Just kind of changes directions a little bit. And then it kind of slows down a little bit, and then it kind of pops off that wall really fast. So it kind of has a, like it picks up energy off that wall. Um, hold on one second. Yeah, just set it right over there on the counter. Find a spot. Thank you. Okay, so you can see that it kind of changes angles a little bit. I'm not sure, I'm sorry. It kind of changes speeds right there. It feels like it kind of picks up some energy off that wall and speeds up. And then it kind of comes to a stop. I think you need a little bit more resting time there before it explodes out again. Just so we can read that it came to a stop. And then when it does, so I'm not 100% sure about the physics of this, because I think that there's a chance that since it's going so directly at that it would bounce off a little bit more. And what you would want is like a mirror of this. So what it would feel like is it goes in at one curve and arcs around it. Let me see if I can draw that. So right now you have kind of like this shape, right? and the ball is sort of just being shot straight at this wall here. And so I think what would happen is it would kind of just ricochet off. But if you had a mirror of this on the other side, right, and did this, so that's a little bit, and you shot it right here to where it hits at an angle, I think then it would hit there and travel all the way around. So that may just be something you could fix by changing the pieces a little bit. But that's something that a lot of people had, and like trying to figure out how to get it to hit that angle correctly is sort of a problem unto itself. So overall, it's not bad. Needs a little bit of work to kind of tighten some of this up, but it turned out pretty good. So those are just some things that I think I would tweak with. So let's go look at Casey. Open with QuickTime. Ooh, this one's big. And a minute now. So that's interesting because this is a pretty big file. Let's see if it'll just play. Oh, there it goes. So we're getting some hitchiness in there. But let's see. So my biggest thing is I feel like it kind of dies a little too quickly here. So I think the most of this feels pretty good, like the bounce. But then it continues to go fast until I guess right about here, and then it just kind of quickly slows down. So I think you need to have it lose a little bit of speed on each of these, and that way it kind of drifts to here. And sort of play up that anticipation of, is it going to go in, is it going to go in, is it going to go in, and then it stops just right short of it. So like it would ease into that really gradually. I'm also not 100% sure that there's not some slight arcing issues. Yeah, okay. So that's feeling alright. I guess going straight, I believe. Let me go back to the beginning and make sure. Yeah, so all this feels pretty good. It's going straight. It hits there and it bounces off pretty good. Hits there and bounces off pretty good, but it looks like it's going toward the corner here. And then it kind of feels like it... No, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe just for some reason it feels like that. Maybe that angle would be a little different. But it feels like it kind of curves in just a little bit right through here. But that may be an optical illusion because of this edge here. Like I think that it's the angle it bounces off at there. I expect it to hit the corner, but then when it doesn't, it makes me feel like it turned. So I think maybe there's a little bit of real slight curving right there at the beginning that's causing that trajectory to change a little bit. So maybe play around with that just a little bit, look at your arc and see if that's a pretty sharp angle. And if it is, then it's just optical illusion and that's alright. But sometimes you have to play to people's optical illusions, playing to what it is they think they saw, even if what you animate is correct. If it sort of has that illusion, it may feel a little strange. But the biggest thing that I notice on it is the slowing down before it gets to the whole. Like I think it just needs to be a more gradual slow down overall. So overall, pretty good there. Let's move on. No, I don't want to save it. Thank you. Cat. Open this with QuickTime. Okay. So we're off to a good start on it here. I think the first half of this looks pretty good. Let's see. So let's just kind of look at it a little bit of time. right here at the beginning, it kind of eases out of this and picks up speed, and I think you just really need that to just burst out of there. Like if you were to look at it from above and the spacing at the top is like that, that, and then it gets bigger and bigger, right? It needs to be the opposite of that. It needs to be like completely stopped, and that first jump needs to be pretty big, and then it can gradually start to get slower as it goes along through here. And what you want is, as it's getting close to the end of it, then that just gets slower and slower and smaller and smaller and smaller until it completely stops. Um, so I think that at the beginning there, it feels like it kind of eases out quickly and speeds up. But you have good transitions like off of here. Like it doesn't feel like that's the wrong spacing, right? And it doesn't feel like it's slowing down at the before it hits the wall. So that's good. You do get a little bit of a curve there. It feels like it's kind of curving inward there. So you may use that motion path to see your motion trail, so it's called, to track that and see how it's looking. I also feel like it kind of bounces off at a strange angle there. It hits at, go back here. So if it hits at sort of this angle, it should bounce off at a right angle to that. So I would think it would bounce off kind of like that. And let's see what it does. See, it kind of bounces off a little low to me. Like I think it would probably go a little bit higher up here and maybe hit there. So then the next thing I notice, that bounce feels good, and it's slowing down as it gets to the wall. But then this is kind of the same thing that we talked about on BJ's. Like it kind of, because it's heading straight at this wall, I think it would actually hit it and bounce back into it. Now, again, if you want it to bounce and sort of curve around, then I think it needs to hit more at the angle. Like the ball needs to come in like here, and that way it hits it and sort of wraps around. But if it's just going straight toward here, since I mean the point that it's going to impact it is kind of flat there, right? Then it's going to bounce back off a little bit sharply. So that may be that you just do a little bit of reconstructing on this. The other thing I notice on it is that after it kind of like it comes off the wall here for I'm not really sure which reason, and then it continues to arc. So you see how it continues to kind of curve around through here. And so that curve around through there implies that something else is sort of changing its path, because the ball wants to go straight until some other force is applied to it. And what it feels like, since it's sort of spiraling around the holes, it feels like that this area is sort of recessed, like it's sunk down into it, like there's a dip in the land mass around it. And so that's why it's kind of rolling around in a circle there. So that's what it feels like, even though I don't think that's what's really happening there. So that's something you need to kind of play with and figure out. Really the biggest thing is what happens from here on and how you're going to address that. Yeah, just set it right there on that shelf. So otherwise, that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and move on. Again, sorry, some of my students from another class are printing some stuff, so they keep coming in here and asking questions. And so if you hear me talking to somebody, that's what's going on. So I apologize for that. Oh, crap. There we go. Make sure that's up. Okay. And is this where we are? Christina, yeah. So let's look at this one. Okay, I think the biggest thing on this. Okay, so let's kind of talk about them one at a time. The first thing is, I think it's floating off the ground. I'm not 100% sure, and this could actually be, if you're rendering with Viewport 2.0, this could be a spacing in your shadow. Like there's an option you can set that just makes it look like the shadow's not connected to the ground. But and I get that indication that may be what's going on because we're seeing it here. But that's the first thing that I notice. So that hit So it takes off kind of fast, but it still is kind of easing into that. See, I kind of like that jump is smaller than that jump. And so I think your first jump needs to be really big. So maybe I could go straight from stopped to like there. Right? And then travels in a pretty straight line and it changes directions, but it kind of hits here and hesitates there for a little bit. And that's again it kind of slows down and slows back out. So you need to go break the tangent. What that probably looks like in your tangents is something like, um, it's headed toward that wall and it kind of eases in just a little bit and then eases back out a little bit. And so what we need that to look like is, if this is the keyframe, it just needs to go in there sharp, pop straight back out sharp. The other thing I notice on this one is that the angle it bounces off is a little odd. It kind of feels at first like it's bouncing straight toward this point, which would feel right. It would go straight there, but then it kind of curves and goes toward that wall. And so I think one of the better ways of doing this is probably like look at it from above and just draw out in your mind where it should hit and how it would bounce realistically. So again, we're kind of easing in on the corners there, easing in, easing in. And for the most part, these are straight, but again, I'm not 100% sure that it's bouncing off at the correct angles. And so that's why I feel like it kind of eases in, curves again, and so hits the wall there, and then I guess it drops in. This is where it gets a little confusing to me, because at this point it drops in the hole, and then it looks like it shoots it back out of the hole and comes back down to rest, or comes back down to like bounce, and then bounces against that wall. So really, everything after the point where it goes in the hole, I get confused about what's happening. So I guess that's a question to ask yourself is like, if what we're doing is communicating as animators and I'm having a hard time figuring out what's happening, then that means that something about the motion isn't communicating to me. And so to me, the biggest thing that's not communicating is like, I could buy that the hole spits it back out, but it's stuff like it gets up here in the air and does sort of a little jiggy, like if we look at it launches straight up, but then as it comes back down, it does something like this. Does that make sense? And so, like, if it were just to launch it back up in the air and it bounced a few times, that would make sense. Even though that doesn't make sense, like there's not really a cannon or a gun in here that would launch it back out, I would still read that just based off of the motion. I would still communicate based off the motion. And so I think that's kind of what you're going for, but again, it kind of eases into the ground here. So it kind of slows down before it gets there and then slows back out when it takes off. And then for some reason, it kind of feels like it has a burst of energy forward where it hits the wall and kind of bounces back to here. And so I don't know where that burst of energy comes from there that bounces it forward. So I think it could be kind of neat if the hole just sort of popped it back up and it went dunk, 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 and just sort of like rested right outside of it. It's that jump forward that bounces off the wall. So I think that this one is one that I think can use a little bit more planning from the beginning. Like you go through and just kind of plan the path of what it's going to do. And I think you had some interesting and neat ideas here. The only issue is like they got a little overly complicated. So I think when you plan it out and you said, this is what I want to do, then simplify that as much as you can. And if what you're really wanting to show is the funny part of the animation is that it goes into the hole, but then the hole spits it back out, then maybe your animation is just the ball going from here to there, maybe there, and then there. I have to work those angles a little bit better because it's a little bit sharp on that. Or maybe you move this over to here, so what you get is this sort of straight line through here to hit that, to that, to that. I don't know. We'd have to change that just a little bit, the angle of this just a little bit. But then I have it go in the hole, and then after it goes in the hole, then it spits it back out in the air, and it just goes dunk, 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 dunk. You know, if that's what you're going for, like this is a much more simple way of telling that story, and I think it would read pretty clearly. And so this is what you would probably want to do from pretty early on, of like how to communicate this to your to your viewer, so like it doesn't get overly complicated, and they can read it just from the simplest part of your motion. So I'll go ahead and move on a little bit. Courtney, putt putt, almost there. This thing's slow to open videos right now. I don't know what's going on. Okay, play. Okay. So I think that I've gone through a lot of these so far, and you're probably going to hear me start to repeat some of the things I said. So you'll hopefully, people have been watching up to this point, and I can just be like I said to somebody earlier, and that way you'll kind of understand, and I don't have to explain too heavily on it. But so what we're getting here at the beginning is, I guess you're wanting it to look like it kind of hits that corner and bounces off. And so I could buy that. I think that if it would, I think it would, I don't know, it feels a little strange at the angle that it hits it to me, and like I had a hard time buying at the very beginning that that's the direction that it would bounce off. Um, but that's alright. I think that you could sell that. I think maybe a little bit more tweaking with this object. And so it makes it feel like a bad putt. It makes it feel like the person playing doesn't know, like, hasn't thought this through, because they should have shot it like through here, and. So it's kind of, maybe that's the strange part to me, is I imagine that where they were aiming was right here, like they wanted to bounce it off that wall and there, right? Um, so, but we got this, and it kind of bounces there. But the thing about it is, like, that's really fast, and that's cool. Like, that's a good amount of energy. And then when it bounces off really big there. Like that's one frame jump, and then it hits there. So it only takes 2 frames to get from there to there. And so that may be even a little fast. You maybe would do it in 3, considering, I don't know, these are going pretty fast. So that's a big jump. But then suddenly it slows down right through there. It gets really slow and kind of loses some energy off that wall. Right? And then it kind of speeds back up again through here. So I don't know where that energy comes from, but I think that it's more than anything just breaking that tangent there. So it feels like a quick motion. And then here's where everything goes awry. Like starting here, the ball starts to curve. So it's going pretty straight, but now it sort of starts curving inward, so it can hit that point of the wall. And so then it doesn't really bounce, it kind of curves off that wall and goes around, and then kind of slows down like it's going to stop there, and kind of does a little curvy dance off of this. So it kind of loops off that. And so let's kind of draw its path roughly. It does pretty good straightforward to there, and pretty good straightforward to there, but then it slows down here, but then it speeds back up. So that could have been an easy tangent fix. But then this is where it goes kind of strange, and then it curves here, comes into here, and kind of curves outward like this. So I think you can see the areas where you need to kind of look at. Sorry, I just got a text message from somebody who I didn't know was even coming. So yeah, you can kind of see that, my drawing is off a little bit, but you get the idea that, like, and then it kind of goes over there. And then from here on out, it actually looks pretty good. It hits the wall and kind of comes here. I think that you could work just a little bit of having this start to dip into the hole a little bit, like it stays right there on the edge. But I think it would start to lean inward toward the hole to get that curve before falling in. So like right through here, just have it sort of dipping just a little bit, like it's already starting to fall in toward it, and then just sort of ride around the edge. So hopefully that makes sense. The biggest thing, just sort of play on the way that it slows down right here, and then the sort of weird curvy dances it does between these two interactions of this wall and this wall. But otherwise, looking pretty good. Okay, Daniel, quick time. Let me see how long this video is so far. Okay, so far we're at about 25 minutes, and oh goodness, I'm about a quarter of the way through. Okay. So, did that open? It hasn't opened yet. So, I'm going to try to get through, Daniel, I'm going to try to get through Doug or Jarlil before I start the next video, assuming that ever opens. Okay, it's not going to open that way. Will it open this way? Oh, there it goes. Let's see if I can open this up in Media Player Classic so we can kind of scrub. Okay. So we're going to, at the beginning, ball's gonna jump forward and go in. So that one's an easy one. Let's watch it real quick. Okay, so I think that this is one where, even though that probably feels correct, it feels a little fast. So like we played I'm trying to look at the first one first. So it kind of jumps forward, right? And almost like stops before it goes in the hole. And it's going so fast on that first one that I think that it would, yeah, it's going so fast that I think it would almost pass it up. So I think I would probably hit it a little less hard and have it not travel quite so fast, and then maybe slow down just a touch before it gets in there and drops in. That's just sort of stylistically. So let's look at this next one here. Okay, so the next one has got more issues. So basically what's happening on it, let's see if I can, does this frame by? Skip forward, step. Oh, that's nice. So what's actually happening here is if we step forward, you see it kind of curves a little bit, but as it gets close to the edge, it sort of curves around it. So it does this, and then instead of bouncing off, it does like this. And so we get like this curve in there. And so when it changes directions, that implies that some force was pushing on it in this direction. So what you want this to look like is there, and then an immediate change like that, like a sharp angle change. And that's because the ball doesn't know that the wall is coming, and even if it does, it can't act itself, so it can't change its direction, right? And so we get this several times through here. So you see how it kind of curves there, it kind of slows down as it gets close to the walls, and then like slows back out again. Whereas I think what it needs to do is, I know what it needs to do is, so see how it slows down? It needs to be traveling pretty fast and then hit the wall and change directions immediately. So when it slows out, it makes it feel like it's like starting to walk before it runs, you know, and that's not what's happening. The only energy this ball has is that energy it got when it was first smacked. So it needs to bounce off and slowly lose energy. The last thing on this one, and so yeah, you'll see it on all of these. It kind of slows down before it gets to the wall, kind of slows down before it gets to the wall. The last thing you'll see is it kind of hovers just for like a frame or two right above the hole before it drops, which just feels a little cartoony, and that's all right. But you know, I'd probably work on that to keep it feeling quite as cartoony. So let's look at the next one. Okay, that one's super fast. Like, I'm I have to go back to that one and then hit pause. Okay, so we step forward and then that happens, and I'm not really sure what that is. So let's try it again. So the ball takes a couple of jumps forward and then does that at that weird angle, and then it goes to the wall a little, gets to here, disappears, reappears there. So I'm not sure what happens there. Either way, it's way fast because it goes from there to there in 2 frames. Whereas right before that, we'll see that it's making relatively small jumps in how far it travels, right? And then suddenly, boom, it's all the way over there. And then starts going forward. So I don't necessarily know what happens there, but all that just isn't really working. So maybe what you wanted was to feel like it would like loop through here, bounce off that wall or something, but there's some energy happening there that just changes directions. And then it kind of just disappears. This whole thing, though, happens in like, let's get there and count them. So, okay, frame 1, and I'm going to give you this one frame even though the ball's not on the screen. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So it takes 1 second for all that to happen. So that's way too fast on that. And that's giving you a few frames that were blank at the beginning. So let's watch through this one. Okay, so this one just has some sort of physics magic that happens there too. I kind of like the cannon at the end. So let's watch what happens here. Okay, now we're on this one, which is looks like the same type of hole. So it slowly moving there, so it needs to speed up there, and then it speeds up a little bit there, but it makes a weird like curve around that. So what it does is kind of going straight, kind of dances around it. Then it hits that wall, but instead of, if it hit that wall, like what I would expect is that if it hit that wall like that, and that's kind of hitting straight on, like that's like if you're this wall, you're hitting it about like that. So it's gonna bounce off like probably like that, right? And so what happens right now is it hits right there, and then it goes this way, which isn't right. It would probably bounce back this way. And then we keep clicking through. It does a little bit of dancing right through there too, and kind of, so it just kind of like slides along this wall and then goes in before the cannon shell kind of falls in on top of it. So that one just has a whole bunch of little physics issues. So I think what I would do is, I mean, I think that one of the issues is that you try to do 4 instead of 1, and I would just do 1 really well. So like, if you're going to resubmit one, pick one of the slightly harder ones, and just, I mean, even if you want to do the one with the cannon, and just try to do that one really well. Or I mean, if you want to do even one of the less difficult ones really well, I think that would be fine as well. Okay, Doug, that's what's yours. Okay, let's just re-export this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop this back in the original folder. I'll do this Putt Putt to Greg. Options, H264. That should be fine. We're going to use current. We should hit OK. Save. So like this was an MOV, and like it was a pretty good quality. I don't know if you did that from QuickTime or whatever, but it was still just playing a little slow. So let's look. Right now it's 57 megs. Let's see what the size of the one that comes out is. But this looks like some good animation. I don't want it to hitch too much while we're talking about it. And I think I'd done this locally in the past when I watched it. So this one's 255 kilobytes. And so we can see there isn't a terrible amount of difference in quality. It's a little bit compressed, but we can even... Okay. So I think overall this looks pretty good. The bounce looks pretty good, but then it kind of feels like it picks up speed right there. So let's watch it again. So it feels like something like sucks it down the ramp. The other thing I would say is like this is even before we did the bouncing ball exercise, but your bouncing ball is actually pretty good. It feels like it slows down a little bit, like it just kind of kisses the ground there, and so I don't feel that sharp impact. And my guess is that your curve, is just kind of easing in a little bit at the bottom and back out. And so you already know they're just going to bounce like that instead. But those very slight changes are the only thing I really see there. That, and then how quickly it speeds up down the ramp. Now, I know you probably want it to feel like it's picking up speed because it's going down the ramp. But that's going to be gravity slowly pulling it faster and faster. So it would speed up just a little bit, but we wouldn't feel that speed shift there because it's not really kicked in yet. Like if it were just dropping off the edge, we'd feel it even falling off the edge of something. Even if we have this box and this ball is going to fall off the edge of it, it doesn't, like when it gets to here, just like rocket toward the ground, right? It's gravity starts to take effect, and so at first it may be a slightly smaller, and then it gets bigger and bigger, right? And so it's going to be even a slower like progression down the hill on this one. Like it's going to slowly pick up speed, maybe be just a little bit faster by the time it gets to the bottom here. Yeah, I like that though. And I like the little bounce a lot, especially this first, like dunk, like that feels really good. So, very small amounts of tweaking to do on this one. I think overall it's looking pretty good. Jalil, let's go ahead and open this and QuickTime. Okay. Okay. So, this one just goes way too long. So the idea is that some energy was imparted to this ball here at the beginning, right? And so it's kind of easing out at the beginning. You see how it kind of moves slowly at first and then picks up speed. And so it should just sort of burst out of there. It should just pop, like launch out of there. But then throughout all this animation, that's the only energy it has. Like it was given that energy, and every time it runs into something, it should lose a little bit. And so yours just kind of continues to steadily, uh, just steadily keep going uh, without slowing down or losing any energy until it eventually gets back in there. So I think that maybe it makes sense for it to go, like with the amount of energy it seems to have, like it may be able to get to like right through here or something. So you may be able to bounce it off to there and straight into the hole. But that's a even that is a little bit. Yeah, that's it should be going pretty slow by the time it gets to the hole. So that's the biggest thing. The other thing is it really feels like it's kind of it's slowing down before it gets there and then speeding back up again. And so the ball doesn't know that wall's coming and it couldn't slow down even if it did. And then it can't speed back up either because it doesn't have any of its own energy to do that. All the energy it has is from when it was originally hit and starts doing its bounce. So those are the things that I think you need to work on this. I'm going to go ahead and end this video now. I'm a little over a third of the way through, and so that'll let me get the last two and two more videos, but I'm already at 41 minutes, so I don't want to post a 3-hour movie. So I'm going to go ahead and hit stop, and I'll pick this back up on Jessica. Thanks. Bye.